First, you must realize that you have no idea before you can know the idea. We scan across all the frequencies if we want to learn anything new. Let us begin.
What has physics done for me lately?
Furthermore, the equation E is equal mc squared.
We have now acquired a fateful power to alter and to destroy nature.
That's like when you're in physics and you go to Dreamworld saying, oh, this is a physics excursion.
Science. What is it all about?
The whole of human history all falls in the dust of one stroke of the nail file. You can't really get to grips with evolution unless you realise what an enormous amount of time.
Our own planet is only a tiny part of the vast cosmic tapestry, a starry fabric of worlds yet untold.
And Max, you forgot to mention that it's exactly 1 week out until you do the entire show intro and that introduction that you read out a cappella without a script.
Do I have to learn
Let's see
it, do
what
I?
you can do. Well, if I have, I feel like you can. You're on.
You're tuned into what can only be described as the best radio station on this blue dot we call Earth. It is, of course, for Triple Z, connecting and amplifying the voices of our community. Bid on your conventional wireless radio by tuning into the classic frequency of 102.1 FM, digital devices such as DAB or smart speaker, or streaming us live on our sensational website at 4zzz.org.au. And you can always listen back to our show or any 4ZZZ show for that matter using the ingenious on-demand feature, also found at that URL. We also now have a weekly podcast curated by Toby. A condensed version of the show without the music, which my mum prefers. Just search for our show name, which is, of course, No Idea, spelt with a K, your weekly dose of science. And joining me today, if you haven't guessed already, may I please introduce Peta.
Max, I'm so proud of you.
And Gabe.
I can't even tell you how proud I am of you. I'm so happy.
It's genuinely a little bit impressive.
You even got your intonation down. I'm so proud of you. Congrats.
Next time, Max, I can give you more than a week for this one. Next time, I want the intro.
I know, that's what I was worried about. That'd be great.
But I want you, no backing track.
Yeah,
you have to do the sounds
What
as well.
is it all about? Science.
What has science done for me lately? Yeah. It's just a physics excursion. Okay.
Max, coming up, I've got some science out of Germany about superorganisms of worms. Peter, you've got something about the ocean getting darker.
Yeah.
And saltier.
Max,
Say that.
you got something about the new calculations on the Big Bang.
Oh, did you see that?
Have you been doing that yourself?
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't
Scratching
it?
away at the
We're actually
napkin.
inside a big black hole ourselves, so it's a bit mind-blowing. Okay.
I don't think we're inside it, Max. I think we're on the outskirts of in the galaxy
Ball
around
drop.
it.
Guys, make sure you stick around to the end of the show to figure out what that actually means.
Let's do it, Peter.
I'm excited about this one. What do you guys know about SETI?
SETI.
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 The search for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Yeah, by sounds.
it is.
Yeah.
What?
Is it by sounds, though?
By sound.
By many things.
Explain, Max.
What do you mean by sound? Do you think
Break that
S is for
down
sound?
S is for sound.
For sound.
Sound exploration.
SETI. Okay. I learned about SETI because as a kid I was really obsessed with the film Contact.
Yes,
You guys seen
with
it?
Jodie
It's like
Foster.
that girl and she was like listening to the radio. And there's this weird like blonde guy. Keeps trying
It had
to
a
get in her
disappointing
way.
end, though, that film, didn't it, really?
Yeah, no, I agree. Actually.
Yeah.
The end was a bit like, oh,
Yeah. But,
well.
yeah.
Still really cool though.
Yeah.
Love the idea. But essentially, if you haven't heard of SETI, it's a major research group trying to find aliens and communicate with them. In their own words, for 40 years, the SETI Institute has been a leader in the search for life and intelligence beyond Earth.
How have they gone with that so far?
Well, one of the things they're doing currently is they're trying to talk to whales.
That's
Start here, move outwards.
I mean, it's funny, but it's fair.
It makes sense.
If the goal is to one day communicate with life from another planet, we should probably start by trying to communicate with more than
the locals.
Species.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, we need to be able to talk to intelligent life that comes to our planet.
Shouldn't we be talking to the octopuses?
Intelligent life that's right next to us.
Aren't the octopuses the most alien animal on Earth?
Octopuses don't really have much verbal communication.
No.
They don't really communicate that much with other octopuses. They're quite solitary. They don't really have a need for intense, complex communication because they don't have social structures. But you know what does have complex social structures?
Yes, whales.
And very complex vocal structures?
He said it's whales.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
And
Max.
dolphins.
And dolphins.
Do you want to give me an impression of either of the two?
No, not particularly.
Okay, well, just to remind you, we have actually talked about SETI's interactions with whales before on this show, because they had a previous project. I can't remember how exactly they were doing it, but they were trying to use, I believe it was AI, machine learning, to break down segments of repeated fragments of their language to be able to sort of decode what they were saying. And they got to the point where they figured out, oh, this is a greeting, this is something else. It wasn't clear translation, but they got closer, which is pretty cool. But yeah, again, I think we should really focus on translating whales. This time, though, they've just released a new study because they've documented for the very first time, keep in mind, they're watching whales all the time. They've documented for the first time humpback whales producing large bubble rings near humans. And they think it could be important.
Bubble rings.
Bubble rings, okay.
As in the feeding bubble rings?
No, see, this is the critical difference. It's not the feeding bubble rings. We've talked about those before as well.
It's like smoke signals.
No. No, it isn't. I mean, no, it isn't. Don't know enough about smoke signals, but I know it's not. So essentially, the feeding bubble rings are when the whales go in circles and they blow bubbles out of their nose, essentially. And then the fish go like, oh my God, what is this? I'm terrified. Like, it's a wall. Oh my God, I can't get through that. So they essentially corral all the fish and there's krill into one area, and they can swallow them up really easily. Bubble rings have been seen in humpback whales. We did a story on them doing it on the eastern coast of Australia recently because it was one of the first times they'd seen it in our area. They've been doing it in the northern hemisphere for ages. So that is a behaviour that is really interesting that they do, but it's not communication. This is a bubble ring, like, you know how you see in cartoons where cartoons are like smoking a cigar and there's like a perfect ring? That is literally that. When they're in the picture, it looks like a giant ring coming out of the water. Like, not a ring of little bubbles, one bubble ring. Huge. And so the research team analysed 12 episodes of bubble ring production involving 39 rings made by 11 individual humpback whales. So a lot. This happened a lot. And these observations were collected during friendly encounters between whales and humans, such as swimmers and boats. And yeah, they think it's definitely distinct from the bubble net feeding technique. And they documented it using photography and videography, which meant that they could really break it down and watch it like frame by frame and see what was happening. And this is what's crazy, is that they noted that the whales often approached the humans voluntarily and produced the bubble rings in their direction, suggesting a potential attempt at interaction or communication. They think, essentially, as much as they're trying to communicate with whales, they think whales might have already been trying to communicate with us. Sort of in the way that in my head, what they're doing is they're like, almost like what we do with puppies. Where we're like, look at this, woohoo, isn't that fun? Look at these bubbles. Whales are like, oh, cute, a whole boat full of humans. Look what I can do.
Yeah.
And then the humans go, whee! And they're like, oh, wow, let's do it again. That's what it feels like to me. It's not like complex communication, but they do think it is human-whale interaction. They think that the behaviour demonstrates curiosity and social complexity, traits that are valuable in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. That's a huge assumption there that aliens are also curious and so socially complex. You know, they might be. And then, yeah, they do the regular thing of having 3 to 4 paragraphs of explanation of why this helps them find aliens, which I don't really care about. I just want to talk to whales. I care way more about the whales.
Whales bubble ringing.
Yeah, you can see the videos online. It's really cool.
If the aliens communicate in bubble rings, we are one step closer to communicating with them. If they don't, don't feel like this is really step towards
I don't know where we're heading.
Extraterrestrial communication.
Yeah. They say that it's helping them figure out non-acoustic communication because currently they're focusing on acoustic communication. Sounds, Max. And so now they're like, well, why aren't we looking at non-sound communication?
Yeah.
Which is a bubble ring.
Sure.
Brilliant.
Good for them.
You don't know if aliens can bubble ring.
I don't.
If they come here and they bubble ring aggressively at us, then we'll know what's happening.
Celebrate half a century of underground radio, subcultural creativity and independence at Z50. Saturday, 25th of October at Roma Street, Parklands.
A core event as part of 4ZZ's 50th anniversary.
Joined by a wonderful menagerie of musical denizens from 4ZZ's past and present. Catch The Saints, 73 to 78.
Regurgitator.
Tropical Storm.
Full Flower Moon Band.
Big Noter.
Butterfingers.
Scream Feeder.
Nice Biscuit.
Party Dozen.
Dancing Water.
Flanger Panties.
Platonic Sex.
And Velociraptor.
2 stages, no crossovers. Tickets via Oztix.
4ZZZ subscribers get early access to tickets from midday June 11th.
General public on sale midday June 12th.
Z50, a celebration of 50 years of 4ZZZ radio.
So book your tickets after the show.
50 bloody years, Max.
Z50. What sort of playlist wouldn't you get on any other radio station but our radio station, where it just features the name Jackie? The show is No Idea.
Every week now, right? It's just this is
We
a
don't
permanent
even know
thing.
if any other show on this station will allow it. We just happen to allow it.
That's right.
I think the rest of the shows
Clearly
have higher
not meeting
standards.
quotas. Okay. Give us the good oil, Gabe.
The good oil. I've got worm superorganisms, Max.
Right.
Scientists at the Max Planck Institute of Animal Behavior have found wild superorganisms living in rotting pears and apples.
Ugh.
Yeah, pretty. Yeah, what they're looking at are called nematodes.
Oh, I don't like
know.
nematodes. Nematoda are huge. Many nematodes in the world. Many, many, many.
They are a type of roundworm. They are the most abundant animal on Earth and are everywhere. They are on you, they are around you, and they always will be, unless you end up in the vacuum of space.
Or you had one of those fun chocolates.
Yeah. They are... yeah, okay.
Those are anti-nematodal, just so you know.
Yeah. Not on the outside, though. They're still on your skin.
Yeah.
They are, I mean, they can get up to 10 metres long, according to the CSIRO, but usually they're in the 1 millimetre to 2 millimetre range.
I'm looking for them right
Just
now.
all over the place. There's like common little like pop science things about if you got rid of pretty much any living or natural matter.
Yeah.
And it just disappeared. There would be a faint outline of it left from all of the worms that were sort of on it.
Really? Okay.
In it and around it, you know. So that's how they are
Max, don't
massively
be mean
abundant.
to your worms. Your worms are keeping you alive.
They are, yes.
And one of them is called C. elegans, and that's what we're looking at now. It's one of the most populous of them all because...
The superworm.
Yes. Well, a superworm that becomes a superorganism, because one of the things that people haven't really been able to understand is how these things spread. These ones in particular are about that millimetre long
Itty-bitty.
in size, right, as a worm. If they're sitting on something like a rotting fruit and there's another one 2 metres away, it is extremely easy for it to die on that journey. That's a massive journey for it to make.
Yeah.
And it could just die. It could go the wrong way. It could get eaten by a predator. There are so many different things that could happen. So
They get squashed by you.
there's been a strong suspicion that these things are able to cooperate. Oh, thank you, subscriber.
Someone's a worm fan.
Someone's a worm freak. So there's been a strong suspicion that, these things are able to cooperate in a way that lets them hitch a ride on other animals to new food sources.
Yeah.
And breeding grounds and everything that comes
Like
with that.
lots of different
rotting fruit or whatever it might
microorganisms
be.
do this.
Yeah. So in particular, they think they jump onto flies and the flies take them to another spot. But they haven't ever seen this in the wild.
Imagine a fruit fly. They're quite small too. Like honestly having someone riding horseback. That fly's like,
Genuinely, hitch a ride on a fruit fly or something. So one of the technical assistants who was involved in this had to spend months walking around orchids nearby the
orchids
uni.
are nice. That's quite pretty.
And but had to carry around a digital microscope.
Yeah.
Staring at rotting fruit through the microscope and recording the natural behaviours of worms and their towers, so these tiny little nematodes. And then they brought some back to the lab and did lab studies too. What they found is that the towers of these nematode worms worked together to try and found. Yep, these worms worked together, forming towers to try and find a path or a fly to latch onto to escape and find new resources, new pairs, new rotting pears and fruits.
Don't we all?
Yeah, so they form these towers. Often in the absence of any physical support, they will swarm together.
Like those ants that make boats together?
Like rafting fire ants, yeah, exactly. That's one of the examples they use of a similar superorganism.
Look at me go.
And a slime mold is another one. So they work together and they form these towers of themselves. They get about 5 millimeters high without support. If there's some sort of support, they got up to 11 millimeters high. So about 10 times their own body length. So there's a lot of them swarming together in this tower. They didn't give a specific count,
the one in the middle?
But it looks like a few dozen. We'll get to the one in the middle. And yeah, they're able, as they're there, they're able to move in unison and they sort of flop around. It looks like one worm sort of moving around, trying to find. You know when you see a leech trying to find something to latch onto?
Yeah.
It looks like that, but it is a
multitude
of lots of different worms working together and doing a similar sort of thing.
And they think they communicate?
Well, maybe. What they did find is that when they put some sort of physical, like they had a little pick and they put it on top of the tower as the tower was reaching around trying to find something to latch onto, and they would sort of move towards it in unison and latch onto it, and they respond to that physical touch in unison, I guess.
Right.
Maybe, is the way
There's
to
not
say
like
it.
one down the bottom being like, I don't love the look.
Yeah. It's not a bit of a ratatouille.
Move left, move left.
Bottom.
A bit further, a bit higher.
Yeah. Yeah. So they also found, which is what surprised them, is that when they did detach from a surface because they put something in there or a fly walked across, most of them would be able to detach in one blob as well and hitch a ride on that fly to the next location. It wasn't just like the top one gets to leave. They all got to leave.
Yeah.
And so, then they
so they form a superworm, and then the entire superworm moves to the new thing.
Pretty much, yeah. And what they looked at the species that were happening within these towers, because obviously there's a huge diversity of species within nematodes. They only found evidence of towers of the same species.
Oh, no interspecies towers?
No competition going on.
Yeah.
It was only the same.
It would be so much more helpful if they could find a bigger species and hitch on them.
It would. But it wasn't happening. So there's clearly some sort of competition going on there where they are. It seems like they're able to exclude others.
You.
The world of nematodes is so diverse. I'm sure there are examples of shared species, but they didn't see any.
Yeah.
And then they brought some back to the lab. And then they were doing what you were talking about and looking at, who ends up at the bottom?
Because I'm sure crush physics still works on worms.
And they found no difference in the life stage or the sexual fecundity or anything they were looking at to look at, the health and the sexual fitness of the different worms. No difference at the top or the bottom.
The one right in the middle is like, I'm doing so well right now. I'm very protected.
Just random. They did note that because they can clone themselves, these things, they were only looking at clones of the same genes in the lab.
But they were doing it in a lab. They weren't checking the ones in the wild.
So they didn't have... Oh, another one.
So many worm fans. We need to talk about worms more often.
More worm segments coming up.
They make me itchy.
Yeah. They found no difference. They said if they had different genetic combinations, maybe they'd see different sorting. But because it was all one genetic, they're all trying to pass on the same genes, so that may feed into them working together.
Work together to pass on those genes.
Exactly right. Now, to the communication thing, the short answer is they don't know.
If we don't know how whales communicate, I'm assuming we haven't translated worm speech either.
Yeah, they said it could be, it is just individuals clambering on top of each other and it just sort of looks like they're moving in unison. The researchers hinted at that being pretty unlikely. The way it was moving as one congruous whole, the way it detaches as one unit,
it would be difficult for
points
them not
to
have
having some level of collaboration and communication going on. They have no idea how that happens.
Like schooling, like fish schooling.
Potentially, but they didn't point to any of those examples.
No, I know, because they're being good scientists and I'm being a bad scientist.
Think it's different. But they do seem to work together in some way. So that's what I got, Max.
Yeah,
Superorganisms of worms.
And that sort of reminds me of the bat story where the researcher was saying how elegant the bats fly around, without able to see. And then they did some slow motion footage of them and then just bumping into each other all the time.
Just running into
so good.
Damn.
Anyway, we had 2 subscribers during that worm segment. We had Ara K from Mount Nebo and we had Rebecca Rebecca from Petrie. So thank you very much
Two
for
one
that.
fan.
Nice.
If no one else can help, and if you can find them, maybe you can hire
4ZZZ. I reckon I can do that voiceover. Thank you.
No reverb. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, do it right now.
4ZZZ.
Nice. You're listening to 4ZZZ.
I played that sting because we've got Issy in the room.
Hello, good morning.
Well done. What do you got for us, Max? Well, Peter likes to point out.
Intros himself every time.
Three other people.
Yeah.
Cuts us all out.
Yep.
He wants to run this show.
Well, we could just leave, could
That's
we?
right.
Yeah.
Peter likes to point out that My Weird Science generally involves AI or robots or both. So today, I'm going to talk about, wait for it, cars.
Really pushing the boundary.
What a curveball.
There have been a few attempts at making car brake lights smarter. Back in 2008, a paper was written about using different colours to convey the difference between a slow stop and an emergency stop.
It's just like flashing rainbow.
They used a rear middle light was augmented with orange LEDs, which would glow when the car was slowly applying its brakes. But when the brakes were fully applied, red LEDs would start flashing. And then in 2013, the Ford Motor Company participated in a special test of a high-tech early warning brake light that can warn drivers following behind, even if they are unsighted or behind other traffic. In emergency braking situations, the experimental electronic brake light, or EBL, transmitted a wireless signal to illuminate a dashboard light in cars following behind.
Oh. How far though?
Yeah.
Because there's this I don't know what the name of the equation is, but there's this equation that's like, have you seen it? It's like people going around in the circle and then someone like slightly brakes and then there's this huge traffic build up from that. So imagine if your car's like, hey, someone's emergency brake is on, and you go like, just brake a little bit.
Yeah.
For days.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I'm thinking. Like, how does it, like, if they're sending the signal wirelessly, wouldn't it be sending the signal forwards as well as back? Like, it'd be sending it.
Oh, yeah.
So the car's in front.
The car in front's like, oh.
So clearly that technology didn't get done. And then fast forward to 2025, a study analysing 200 real accidents at road junctions showed that depending on reaction time of road users, between 8% to 17% of collisions would have been prevented by an additional brake light on the front of the vehicle. In up to a quarter of cases, the lights also would be reduced the speed of the impact and thus mitigated injuries. The results of the study were recently published in the scientific journal Vehicles. What a cool read that'd be.
Yeah, straight to the point.
Now, it should be noted that the front brake light lit up in green instead of red and can be easily integrated into the design of new vehicles, so they say. Existing vehicles could also be retrofitted relatively cheaply.
Wait, so hang on. If it's on the front of the vehicle,
Yeah.
I'm driving,
Yes.
the car behind me suddenly lights up green,
Yes.
showing me they're braking.
Yes.
What am I meant to do?
I don't know.
What's the reaction I'm meant to have?
They reckon it'll work.
It's a combination of being able to pull out away from someone who, is looking down at their phone or something and then hits the brakes. You're able to see the person behind you is hard braking and pull away out of their way. But I think what's probably more likely is they may have been looking at pedestrian incidents. And so the light is an extra warning sign of there's a car.
A bit of both,
towards you
yeah.
at speed, yeah.
It was mainly accidents between cars, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Weird. I just don't know what, as a driver, I'm meant to do in that scenario.
I wonder if it's for insurance reasons. Like, a lot of, at least I've been watching a lot of dash cam videos, and
as you do,
yes. And a lot of times, if you know how a lot of crashes are caused by obviously the person behind either rubbernecking or doing something like being distracted. So whether that indicator that they intended to brake prior to crashing or whether they just weren't looking or were distracted, whether that plays into it. I'm trying to look up the research.
What they did was they studied the 200 accidents to do with someone coming from a secondary road at an intersection to a main road. And then if you could see that car coming towards you, to your right or left, whatever, at the intersection, and they got the green light on, you know they're braking. But if they don't have the green light on, you say, hang
make
on,
an executive
we can
decision.
avoid that car.
So it's more informing.
Because they haven't seen the oncoming traffic on the main road.
So it's more for informing the people around the car than it is for the actual car driver itself.
And they said it was even better when they had the green lights on the side, so all around the car. So that it just lit up the car, so you knew when that car was braking.
Green, though.
Green means go.
Yeah, green means go.
Agree on this.
Yeah. It should be like amber, you think.
Amber, amber means slow. Red means stop.
Yeah.
Green means go. We've all been taught this since birth. If I see a car lit up green and we're like, it's going pretty fast.
Anyway, from the 200 study, and they put it through a simulator and so forth, they found that about 34 accidents could have been avoided. Which means 68 cars didn't have to get damaged. Pretty amazing, eh?
68 cars didn't have to get damaged.
It was a necessary evil.
What about, won't anyone think about the damage to cars?
Jim texted in saying they can ask the whales if they are aware of ETs. And the other one was from Brad. Brad said, hey, love the show. Beluga whales in aquariums blow bubbles using both blowhole and mouth at humans.
True.
Yeah.
They have done bubble rings before.
And
That's
dolphins
very
as
true.
well.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that at SeaWorld when you were down at SeaWorld, Peter?
No, I did not see that when I worked at SeaWorld. No comment on why I believe that not to be the case.
They're not happy. Okay.
4ZZZ is celebrating 50 years of people-powered radio. For all those decades, Z has been broadcasting boundary-pushing music, news, culture, and activism. From the 8th of August to the 8th of December, we'll be hosting a range of gigs, panel discussions, exhibitions, and more to recognise and celebrate our communities. Z will be popping up all over the city, and there is something for everyone. Head to 4zzz.org.au to check out what we have planned and get ready to celebrate 50 years of 4ZZZ.
You're tuning to 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max, Issy, Gabe, and our friendly neighbourhood marine scientist, Peter.
That's me. Okay, so something weird has been happening in the ocean. It seems to be getting darker.
Ooh.
Now, before I get into it, I wanted to see if anyone had any guesses as to why this would be happening.
Why the ocean is getting darker.
I thought this would be a fun time for us to flex our scientific brains.
More iron? More iron in the water?
Iron?
Yeah.
More,
Interesting.
Pollution plays a large role in that coverage.
Pollution's a good idea.
Plastic
I'm gonna
bags.
guess, assuming it's human-driven, like a recent darkening.
It's within the last 20 years.
Yeah,
So I think that's a fair assumption,
So-
if I'm being honest.
I like pollution, Izzy. I think pollution and then potentially human activities causing stuff to get darker, like trawling and anything else that's disturbing the seabed.
And whale urine.
Seabed.
Dredging,
What?
all that sort of stuff. And whale urine, as Max said. The rebound of the whale population means
Yeah. Too many whales.
I don't think they do pee. It's like, no, they have, it's like a mid thing. It's not like specifically urine. It's like a, doesn't matter. Anyway.
Yeah. Max is just
We
throwing
don't
us
need
off.
to talk about whale secretions. We're talking about the ocean getting darker. So this comes to us from the University of Plymouth. QS ranking, please.
don't
Oh,
do this.
God.
380.
No, I think
No.
that'd be a bit. 121.
200.
661 to 670. And these guys were interested in the photic zone. So the photic zone is essentially the area in the ocean that receives enough light from the sun for photosynthesis. Does that make sense? Everyone got that? It's generally around 80 meters deep, but it changes place to place, like obviously with different types of water, blah, blah, blah. Underneath that, you then have the mesophotic zone, which receives some light, but it's still really dark. We would not be able to see anything. And then Under that is pitch black, basically no light. That's where there's like the deep, deep ocean. But these researchers were only interested in the photic zone because it's critically important, because it supports about 90% of all marine life. Like, all of the ecosystems are built through the photic zone, through things like photosynthesis, base of the ecosystem in the photic zone. So they use satellite data from NASA's Ocean Color Web, which provides global ocean observations at a 9-kilometer resolution, which essentially means that it chops the ocean up into pixels, and those pixels in real life are about 9 kilometers squared. Right? So that's actually a pretty high resolution data for the ocean.
For all of ocean.
For all of ocean,
Yeah.
for all of planet,
ocean.
All of ocean, 9
They
kilometers
carved
is
up
high
73% of the planet into 9
Let me be
kilometers
clear,
squared.
these are satellites. The satellites weren't like, ocean, turn on. It was just the entire planet.
Sure.
It was the researchers that were like, well, that pixel's ocean,
Okay,
and that
gotcha.
pixel isn't ocean. Anyway, so these satellites collect a lot of data, color, brightness, reflection, different wavelengths of light, all sorts of things like that. And with complex algorithms, you can use some of these data to estimate the depth of the photic zone. It is a very complex algorithm, and we're not getting into it. It's just, trust us, you can figure out how deep the photic zone is from these satellite data. And then they analyse the annual changes in the depth of photic zones over 20 years, from 2003 to 2022, of every single one of these pixels.
Yep.
Take a moment just to sit in how much data that is, and how long it would have taken them to actually compute this. And then they used some more numerical models to assess variations across different ocean regions, and they found something crazy. The analysis revealed that 21% of the global ocean has become darker.
What happened to the rest of it?
Over 9% of the ocean experienced a reduction in photic zone depth by more than 50 meters. Now, to be clear here, we're talking about, like, if each of these pixels went all the way down to the sea floor, that's 1%. So it's saying, does this one pixel, did it get shorter or longer or whatever? So 21% reduced in some manner. 9% experienced a reduction of more than 50 meters, which, reminder, the global average is 80 meters. So a reduction in 50 meters is significant. And nearly 2.6% saw reductions exceeding 100 meters. Like, silence, because it's massive. Because it's really massive. Huge changes. Very, very worrying. But right now, a lot of you are probably wondering how on earth the ocean can be getting less light when we're busy pumping it out of every single orifice we can. Lights everywhere. Lights on every part of the continent. Lights in boats. Lights in satellites. Lights everywhere. So how the hell is something getting darker when we're so busy producing light? About 10% of the ocean became lighter during this time period, specifically around coastal areas. So more light coming through. However, they were specifically looking at light from celestial bodies, but I think obviously human pollution does sort of interfere with that. So that's the difference there. And why they don't know for sure, to be clear, like when I started this, I asked you all to have a guess about what it could be. They don't know for sure. This was only trying to figure out how much and if it had changed. But they have some ideas. So in coastal regions, they think that increased nutrient and sediment runoff from the land, often due to agricultural activities, changes in land use, so basically like cutting down trees and changing it into farmland or whatever, you get a lot of basically soil runs off the land. And when that happens, it goes into the ocean, and that soil has a lot of nutrients. And then things like phytoplankton and algae go, ooh, nutrients, and bloom. So that's one thing that can happen around coastal areas, leading to algal blooms, which are suspended particles in the ocean that diminish light penetration. Make sense?
Yep.
So essentially, all of this is a question of how much stuff is suspended in the water, I think is what it really comes down to answer our previous questions, which could be, Issy, pollution. It is not likely to be whale urine max, but, theoretically a similar idea. Stuff in the water. In the open ocean, they actually think that it's still about algal blooms, but they think it's because of dynamics and shifts in the sea surface temperatures, probably caused through global warming, and changes in like global currents and stuff like that have affected the clarity of surface waters, reducing the light availability. So that's where they think it is. Essentially, there is more stuff in the water now, whether it be things like pollution or just we have changed the climate, so the surrounding areas of the ocean, so more things are growing. We've changed the ecosystem, basically, of the global oceans.
Wow.
Which obviously is huge. The darkening of the ocean has profound implications for marine ecosystems. Many marine organisms, as I said, 90% of the ocean rely on sunlight for their ecosystem buildings. A lot of them rely on it themselves for survival, reproduction, navigation. A shallower photic zone actually forces a lot of animals and organisms that live within that zone closer to the surface and closer together, which increases competition for resources and disrupts the food chain just instantly, having a smaller space to be in. The other thing is that the ocean's photic zones play a vital role in carbon sequestration and oxygen production, also obviously supporting fisheries. But the Associate Professor Dr. Thomas Davies, who was one of the leaders of this study, emphasised the significant findings, saying that the reduction in photic zones could impact the air we breathe, the fish we consume, and our overall ability to combat climate change. So this is no small issue. It is absolutely massive. And I think it's something they're going to continue looking into and hopefully figure out exactly how it's happening, what mechanisms are driving it, and how we could potentially start reversing some of this.
Cool.
Yeah, massive news out of the ocean this week.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay, it's time for the best part of the show. Loosely defined as science, yeah, you already know. Everybody listens to 4ZZZ just to hear us talking about what Butters just did. Subscriptions just keep rolling like the tires on a car. But something tells me that our science curves won't go far. But unlike an engine, I won't keep you in suspension. We're all here to hear him talk, so let's give him attention. You're not ready for when he starts rapping. Gonna hand the mic to Max, and I'm not talking Van Stappen.
It's Jackie Stewart's birthday today. Famous Formula One driver. He's now the oldest surviving Formula One driver.
Oh, wow.
So at 86, so he's born in 39. And he brought a lot of good to the F1 because he was integral in making sure that they actually wore seatbelts. Like, who would believe you'd be driving a car and you think it's safer not to have seatbelts on and be thrown from the car? Then, yeah, anyway. And the...
Well, I imagine it was one of those things where we look at the halo now, we're like, this is so essential. But back then, when it's first initially released, it's like, oh, it's not part of it's not part of the danger of F1. So
exactly. Anyway, F1, I'm calling it early. Oscar Piastri looks set to become Australia's next F1 world champion.
Oh, Max. Oh. Can't say that.
Our last,
it's like halfway through.
Our last champion, just hear me out, Gabe, humour me if you will. Our last champion was Alan Jones, who won the championship in 1980. Our next F1 world champion was meant to be Mark Webber back in 2010, but somehow Alonso got in the way and somehow Vettel won it. However, a certain driver, by the name of Vettel, put those ambitions to rest. Let's just say Vettel was not the best teammate to have. And this is where I believe Oscar will have the edge. His manager just happens to be Mark Webber, who I'm thinking is mentoring Oscar in such a way that he wished he had back then in 2010. Oscar seems steely-eyed at winning this year's championship. And with Webber stewardship, it could prove to be a formidable combination. And in a way, Webber will have redemption by finally seeing another Australian F1 world champion.
Interesting. So do you think Mark Webber is kind of cultivating Oscar to be what he couldn't be, really?
Yes.
And I think it does help that Oscar seems to be dominating over Lando Norris, so the teammate aspect is nearly out of the question. That being said, anything can happen in the later half of this season, so we'll see what happens.
Well, while you're on the topic, F1 Academy, what do we got?
So the girls will be in Montreal for the next race this weekend with, as I've spoken before, the additional race added to make up for the rained out Miami race 3. So this schedule will see free practice qualifying taking place on the Friday. 2 races will follow up on the Saturday, with the third and final race taking place on Sunday. Now, this is really interesting because we don't know who the wildcard driver is yet. For those who don't know, F1 Academy is always introducing new talent.
Canadian, you think?
I would hope they would be Canadian, yes. So they introduce a wildcard driver, so some new talent, someone who is well accomplished and wants to make their debut on the international racing front. But we don't know yet. They normally announce it the week before. So we'll find out whether we get a wildcard period. In the press release about the starting grid, they did say that the wildcard driver for round 4, which will be that makeup race, will be permitted to start the race from the back of the grid because race 1 and 2 and 3 all rely on qualifying laps and those types of establishing the grid, including a reverse grid for race 2. So we'll see who it is. I think that's a headline that we might see popping up as we get to the weekend.
Sure.
But for
We're getting
now,
pretty close.
we are getting pretty close, and I'm getting a bit worried that whether or not they will have a wildcard driver. So we'll see what happens. But yes, watch this space. I'm very excited for the race this weekend. We are very spoilt with 4 races.
Okay, I hope Pete's listening because we're going to do a bit of MotoGP. It was in Spain on the weekend, and Aussie Jack Miller finished 14th. Not quite a Miller special, Gabe, but pretty close.
I was so hard on the guy. The Miller special, I think, counts as qualifies in the top 10 and then makes up places during the race and then falls back or falls off. But still, pretty impressive. He's a fantastic rider. And, he's had some good results this year. So I feel like that's not the Miller special. I feel like that's just an unlucky one.
Okay. And the race was won by a Spaniard, Marc Marquez, and his brother was second, Alex Marquez. And rounding out the podium was Italian rider, Francisco Bagnaia. Needless to say that all 3 riders on the podium were riding Ducatis.
Yeah, okay.
Supercars also happened on the weekend over in Perth. Race number 14 saw young 21-year-old Kiwi Ryan Wood win his first supercar race. Then it was business as usual for Brock Feeney and his Red Bull, winning the final 2 races, number 15 and number 16. Of the race weekend, Brock Feeney now leads the championship from Cam Waters and Matthew Payne. And here's the big one, Sail GP. Love my Sail GP. It was off New York in the Hudson. The first day of racing saw 3 fluke races in fluky conditions.
Whoa! Subscriber!
They're putting me off my game. There wasn't much breeze for the F50 catamarans. So they used their 24-metre all-weather sail rig and swapped out their new T-foils for the older but better suited L-foils so they could get out of the water. The crew was also halved from 6 people down to 3. The lack of crew saw the boats making uncharacteristic mistakes in races 1. And then race 2 saw 4 crew on board. And this is exactly what Australia needed. Once we had our flight controller back on board, Jason Waterhouse, who's arguably the best flight controller out there, suddenly Australia just won the race.
Nice.
Job done. But after that, we had a lot of H2. Do you know what H2 is?
No idea.
H2 means 2 hulls in the water.
Oh.
Australia performed a lot of H2 around the circuit, so we didn't do too well, and we managed only to finish 5th in the regatta. Spain won the finals race and have now moved ahead of Australia in first position, and we're in second with 6 regattas to go. The next event will be in about 38 days in the UK. So Canadian Grand Prix this weekend.
Whoop, whoop.
It's a Monday morning watch. You have to get up at 4 a.m. to watch it. Gabe, Issy. Is it doable? I think it's doable.
Yeah.
Gabe?
It's doable, but will I do it? Probably not.
Watch the highlights.
4 a.m. Monday. And then the next MotoGP is next weekend, not this weekend.
Cool.
Nice.
What do you got for us, Issy?
This is not a fun story. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm so sorry. This is a really...
I always bring the mood down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well...
Maybe you could wait till the next hour.
The next hour, yeah. It seems a little bit more appropriate for Eco Radio, but it's still interesting science, so I am going to talk about it. It is all things microplastic related.
Yes.
This is a review from Murdoch University, QS ranking.
With that name?
Murdoch, yeah.
1,500.
88.
Sorry.
88. Gabe?
150.
Ooh, it's 436. So still a digit, but not a range.
Yeah.
They have done a major review into, it's titled Microplastics and Nanoplastics, Fate, Transport and Governance from Agriculture Soil to Food Webs and Humans. So this one is going to be packed full of every single fear that humans have about microplastics.
Maybe the penis ones.
Yes. Well, we've covered the testes story. I think we've also covered the uterus. Microplastics breaking through the blood-brain barrier. I think that's the correct term. And just kind of this prevalence of microplastics and now nanoplastics as well is starting to become a common discussion. But these guys have done a major lit review of essentially all studies about microplastics and that kind of system of from seed to plate, essentially.
Like terrestrial microplastics.
Yes. So
yeah, cool.
Unfortunately, there is a great infographic that goes with this study that illustrates it really well, and it is quite disturbing how much microplastics is prevalent in the agriculture sector. So they have looked at various factors, including plastic used in mulch films, in wrapping, in pesticide containers, in wastewater, and in farm equipment as well.
Wow.
This is beyond just on farm. It can also enter through runoff. So things like tire wear and just kind of general by proximity introduction to microplastics. So whether it's pH testing, whether it's through, mulching, even things like related to rainfall and things like that. So it is just this omnipresent issue. Looking a little further, they've discussed things like biosolids as well, so sewage waste that may be prevalent. So 2/3 of Australia's biosolids, or 349,000 tonnes of dry solids, are used in products for soil replenishment, conditioning, or fertilisation. So that's things like
that's actually a cool
dung,
story.
waste,
I know that.
yeah.
Good for us.
Things
Good
like
use
that.
of it.
Yeah. So whilst it is, they've also targeted things like organic fertilizers, which are seen as a much more environmentally sustainable option, but can still present issues, especially in regards to introducing microplastics regardless into soil systems. So let me find the specific section. Additionally, things like landfill waste, seepage, illegal dumping can also contribute to microplastics in agriculture, and wear and tear of plastic pipes, tools, and tires. So it is quite a depressing story, I'll be honest. It kind of delves into a variety of different factors, but I love the call to action towards the end of this study, which focuses that they are the base of the plastic waste iceberg. There is more evidence needed for it, especially on human health. But it is unfortunately one of those situations where the science is far, far, far ahead than the legislation on it. And some call to actions have been looking at the serious gap in policy to tackle it. I know the EU has been kind of spearheading that with reducing BPA usage in a lot of manufacturing. But unfortunately, it is just an issue that is not being made too far aware. We as media, you get the occasional headlines like the Tessie stories made headlines on social media and things like that, but it's just it's a double-edged, it's a story that doesn't get too much recognition. More evidence is required on the fate and the impact, but we can probably start with things like our farms. They are looking at potentially changing mulching methods to reduce it and reduce additives in the soil. Additionally, looking at managing sewage sludge or organic fertilizers that can stop this kind of cycle of plastics back into the soil. So there are some ideas here, but it is something to be made aware of. Additionally, there'll be more studies about this as it comes out before there is a policy or legislation made towards it. So be aware but not alarmed, I would say. It is super easy to fall into those types of traps where microplastics are everywhere, but you just have to do the best that you can with your with what you have, essentially. So that's my story. Beautiful. It's a little depressing. It's not beautiful, Max. It's pretty ugly, but look, just do the best that you can. And I think that's the general message.
Friend of the show, Owen, DJ Oz, he wrote in and he said, surely Murdoch Uni would be denying existence of microplastics.
You would be surprised. They're pretty. Murdoch Uni does have
Must be a different Murdoch.
It's a different Murdoch. I think it's a different Murdoch. Yeah. But you'd be surprised some of the stories that come out of Murdoch Uni. I'm like, I feel unfortunate for them because they're tied to a certain other Murdoch. But
different Murdoch.
A different Murdoch.
It's not us, guys. I promise.
It's not. They start every presentation with, "Trust me, we know."
Murdoch University, named after Sir Walter Murdoch, one of Australia's finest essayists, writers, and educators, according to the Murdoch University's own site.
Cool.
Yes, so we are not
They
related.
didn't start that critically with not him,
Not
what
him.
you're thinking of,
Yeah.
different one.
Did you read that on the News Corp website? Did you, Gabe? Or
That's on Murdoch Uni's.
That doesn't sound like fun to me.
Tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max, Izzy, Peter, Gabe.
Max, I've been on a monkey science bent recently.
Yeah.
And there was a small story that came out in the last week looking into monkey science, and I didn't think it deserved a whole fleshed out thing because it wasn't huge. But what it discovered was that there were monkeys in that I think they were bonobos.
They were bonobos.
Yeah, no, not bonobos. Sorry, they're not bonobos.
So they were bonobos.
No. That's a great ape. Look it up. What type of
I'll
monkey
look it
it
up.
was? But they walk in lines.
Baboons!
Baboons. Yeah.
Me!
I remembered it as you said it. Baboons. They walk in lines when they disperse around the landscape. Think a savanna landscape. And they walk in these big long lines. And there's been a lot of speculation about why they walk in certain orders. You know, like maybe it's the leaders at the front and the ones at the outskirts sort of trail along behind, or maybe the ones that need protection are in the middle. What they found is that these baboons order themselves in what scientifically is called sort of social relationships, but colloquially has been referred to as friends, basically. So the ones that have
Like junior school kids when they have to hold hands with someone in the line and
Yeah.
they'll jostle to make sure that it's their best friend.
Yeah. So the ones, they stay close to their friends, and the ones with the most friends tend to go in the middle, and because they just have more connections, and so there's more people who try and sort of
popular.
Yeah, be around them.
Yeah.
And then the ones with the least friends end up at the front and the back because they don't have that many to try and be close to.
Yeah.
And Max, I think this is maybe a reason of why we all sit so far apart in the studio.
That's right.
But I don't have a segue, Max.
Yeah, no.
You just wanted to talk about the story.
If you want to be the bonobo in the middle,
Yes. Yeah.
popular, with lots to talk about, really fun, lots of friends.
You mean baboon?
Baboon. I keep saying bonobo. They're very different animals. You want to be a popular baboon, one way to do that is by subscribing to 4ZZZ.
Beautiful.
Take it away.
Just go to our website at 4zzz.org.au/support. There's a myriad of tiers there. If you're under 18, it's $25. If you're a pet, $25.
If you are a pet, talk to your owner. To make you a 4ZZZ subscriber.
Concession is $40. We're not going to check, so you can do that. Full, $80. Passionate, $140. Or become a super sub like Bones for $500. Job done. You also can.
There's a prize.
There is a prize.
Yeah.
For our June prize, every month we do a little prize that highlights our monthly sub outlets. This month it is Garage Sounds, which is a brand new record store who are proud 4ZZZ subscriber discount outlets. They have donated a $200 gift certificate. So if you subscribe during the month of June, you'll be in the running for the draw. The Garage Sounds stocks thousands of vinyl records, CDs, cassette tapes, DVDs, books, magazines, as well as trading and buying all things music related. 4ZZZ subscribers, if you are already subscribed, by the way, get a 10% discount for all stock in the shop and any fair or market we attend, including the monthly Brisbane Record Fair. So if that sounds great, 4ZZZ.org.au/support. Get yourself a cheeky sub and get yourself some merch whilst you're there.
Is this about gamma rays?
Nothing to do with gamma rays, Max. It's about...
So no.
What? Max, every story. Is this about gamma rays?
Is this about gamma rays or robot dogs, please?
Yeah.
Can it be? Can we change it now?
It's a great sting.
Tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea with me, Max, Izzy, Peter. What do you got for us, Gabe?
I've got for you, Max, fossilized dino diets. This has just come out.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Are we talking about coprolites?
No, even better.
Oh.
We're talking
What's better than
about
fossilized poo?
hololites.
Oh.
Okay, she's interested again. Now, diet. Okay, so the diet of any organism tells us a lot about its biology, how it existed, but also how its role in an ecosystem and how it shaped that ecosystem, plays into that ecosystem. For something that is fossilized, figuring out diet is extremely difficult because
You don't say.
it doesn't last, right? Food
They're
doesn't
not
stick
currently
around.
eating something?
We can't watch them eat stuff. It's really difficult to know. So we infer a lot of dinosaur diets and any fossilized animals
there is
diets.
that cool fossil of a fish that died as soon as it ate another fish, and they found a fish in its stomach. And they were like, originally they thought, oh, it's a pregnant fish, but then they were like, wait, fish aren't pregnant, and they realized that it had just eaten another fish, and then it immediately got fossilized. Really cool.
So,
very cool.
In dinosaurs, they use
I want to talk about fish.
teeth. They use teeth, tooth wear, the jaws, the physical structure to get an idea. If you look at something like a sauropod, okay, these existed across the Jurassic and the Cretaceous period. So Jurassic started 200 million years ago, Cretaceous ended 66 million years ago. Across a lot of that time, sauropods massive dinosaurs were across different parts of the world.
Do they look like a dinosaur I know?
Yeah. Well, I'll get there. You know the sauropods. In Australia, they were 95 to 100-ish million years ago was when they were dominating what became the Australian continent. And so these are, you do know what these looks like. These are they are the big dinosaurs that you know of.
From Jurassic
big
Park.
Legs, big long neck, big
like a
long
brontosaurus.
tail.
Eating the leaves of the trees and so forth.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Eating stuff up high. Some of them were the largest known terrestrial animals ever known to exist on Earth. And in Australia, there was a fossil of one. Another subscriber.
Maybe they're just Gabe fans.
Yeah, we're spotting a theme.
Yeah.
So there was a specimen called Elliot. I don't know if you remember this one, but it was quite famous. It got the name Elliot.
Elliot's a great name.
Elliot is a fantastic name.
IW Elliot.
Yeah, and it is.
Tell me this dinosaur's Jackie. Wouldn't that be brilliant?
Yep.
Sorry. Elliot was named after Dave Elliot, who was a grazier who's, I believe the specimen was found on his property.
Oh, nice.
That's cool. That's cool.
And so this dinosaur is the largest known animal ever to exist on land in Australia. It was up to 21 metres long. 16 to 21 metres is the massive range they give this thing. But it's huge and 3.5 metres high at the hip. And then it would get higher with its head as it goes up.
Right.
And so these sauropods were, because they were so big, huge ecosystem engineers, right?
Yep.
Just the physical presence of these things would have changed their ecosystem around them. In that time period, around that 100 million years-ish ago, the continent was very different. There was a lot of big forests. It was really well built to support a herbivore that was, 16 to 21 meters long. But we don't have a solid idea of the diet. We only have sort of these guesses at what they were going to be eating. What they've found now in the summer of 2017, and takes a while to process these fossils because it's a lot of effort and it's a lot of volunteer hours and it's really hard to do. But the staff and volunteers at the Australian Age of Dinosaurs Museum of Natural History were excavating a pretty complete sub-adult skeleton of one of the sauropods from that mid-Cretaceous period, so about 101 to 97 million years ago. And it was found in the Winton Formation, so a hotspot for Queensland's dinosaurs fossils. And during the process, they noticed something unusual. Now, Peter, we were talking about your fish. The reason I didn't get into it then is because I'm getting into it now. What they found in this dinosaur was a fractured rock layer that appeared to contain the sauropod's collolyte, that word that we used before, which is the preserved gut contents. They found the fossilized preserved gut contents of this sauropod. It is the first of its kind for any sauropod, certainly for the ones that they are studying. And it consisted of a lot of well-preserved plant fossils. In other words...
So they confirmed herbivore.
Herbivore, yeah. But they... this is like a look into the diet of dinosaurs that is so rare to find. They found conifers, angiosperms. So conifers are a big group of plants which includes... pine trees, yeah. Angiosperms are all the flowering plants, and then there's seed fern fruiting bodies preserved within. And they found, chemical biomarkers consistent with both angiosperms and gymnosperms, which are those two, the flowering plants, which would have arrived after sauropods arrived, and the gymnosperms, which includes the pine trees and cycads and all sorts of other non-flowering plants. They form the woody seeds, which shows evidence of a couple things. So, for a start, they found that the stuff in the stomach was severed, probably from biting, but not chewed.
Oh.
which supports this idea of bulk feeding. So they're just chomping down stuff and swallowing it and letting their gut do the rest of the
Sort of like
processing.
cows.
Bit like a cow.
Cows don't really chew that much.
Yeah, not
Sometimes they
chewing
do,
much.
but not often.
Because how many stomachs do a dinosaur have?
I couldn't tell
Hard
you
to
how
tell
many
without
sauropods
soft
have.
tissue.
I think it's just the one, but I will double check that for you.
Yeah.
But so they rely on the fermentation and gut microbiome to deal with the processing after they chomp it down and swallow it. And they also, because they confirm that it has those different types of foliage, they confirm that these dinosaurs weren't relying on a single type of plant matter. They were using a lot of stuff, at least in this sub-adult phase, which is what they had in this specimen, which would have been a bit lower. So at least in the early stages, when they maybe can't reach quite as high as when they're the adult stages, they've got a bit of a mixed diet going on and are able to feed on a lot of different things. And it is, it's only a single data point of one younger animal having a couple of feeds, and then that is what we've got fossilized. But it's one more data point than we'd ever had before.
Sauropods have one large stomach.
There you go. Confirmed.
To our current knowledge.
Right.
And so, it confirms this idea that these massive animals must have had a big impact on the ecosystems around them. We're shaping not just certain types of ecosystems with certain types of plant matter available, but we're sampling lots of different plant matter. So it would have had impacts on lots of different ecosystems around them as they went and fed, and meant that they were also feeding on low-growing and high-growing plants based on what they found, at least in this earlier phase of their life. So weren't just having impacts on canopy-level species, big, tall things, also having impacts lower down. Pretty awesome. And just amazing, like the series of events that have to happen to be able to have a dinosaur that feeds in a way and gets preserved in a way that the gut gets preserved and the stuff in the gut
they've
gets
eaten something
preserved.
recently to them is
Right.
crazy that it hasn't actually been broken down.
And then to happen upon it, find it, keep it in a way that means you can actually
what's the
identify
deposit?
stuff.
Is it a volcanic deposit?
Not sure. It's the Winton. It's the big deposit. A lot of deposits around Winton.
Because I feel like if you died with a full stomach that you'd only just recently eaten, which is what would likely have had to happen for something like that to happen, you'd assume it'd be like a bit of a catastrophic event. You're not going to be like slowly dying and then be like, I'll just munch a bit more. Or at least I don't know. Maybe sauropods do. Who knows?
And talk about driving down the M1 and looking at the Gold Coast sign as you drive down south. And I try and pull over to the far left lane and try and read
So
the
you
sign.
can really...
So you can actually see any part of that sign.
Nah, you need to be like a kilometre away, I reckon, to see it.
You do, and it's on a random hill. As a Gold Coast native, it's something in all of us.
The
that
sign
hates
is
that
a beacon of what committees do to anything in this world.
It's right.
What was that statement?
Jackie boy.
It's me hating on the Gold Coast sign. The one that you see on the heights on the M1, and it's like.
Didn't people ask for that to be taken down, and the artist was like, "No."
It was going to cost $250,000 to take it down.
Yeah, to take it down.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it cost a lot of money.
You tune into 4ZZZ, and the show is No Idea. Space News. iSpace, it's a Japanese company. They sent their second lunar lander, and they called it Resilience, and it also performed a hard landing on the moon on June 5. While iSpace said the initial phases of the landing attempt went as planned, telemetry displayed on the company's webcast indicated that the lander reached the surface about 1 minute and 45 seconds before it should have landed with a reported speed of almost 200 kilometres per hour.
Whoa.
Oh, that's a little fast.
Take it back. It's a little fast.
The iSpace webcast stopped after about 25 minutes with the caption, "Move along, nothing to see here." Lockheed Martin, I made that bit up, hello. Lockheed Martin is launching a new initiative.
Why would you do that? That was funny.
Lockheed Martin, new initiative called AI Fight Club, and first rule of AI Fight Club, Gabe.
You've already broken it.
Talk about AI Fight Club.
The winner AI is.
And the second rule about AI Fight Club. Anyway, Lockheed Martin has set up a virtual battleground where companies can test their artificial intelligence algorithms. The program, announced June 3 by John Clark, Lockheed's Senior Vice President of Technology and Strategic Innovation, aims to create a digital proving ground for AI systems across air, land, sea and space operations. And we thought we'd talk about the Big Bang Theory next week and how it may not be the starting point.
Oh,
Let's
little
get into
teaser.
that properly next week. We'll be
Yeah.
back on your airwaves then, Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. on 102.1 FM or whatever you listen to us on. Between now and then, blow some bubble rings at a whale, see what happens. Appreciate the teamwork of your local nematodes. Keep the plastic out of your soil. And listen back to all of those stories on whatever podcasting platform you use. We're on Spotify, Apple, all of the big ones, and a bunch
5
of little ones
stars.
as well.
Mm.
5
5
stars.
stars.
Only 5 stars.
Rated podcast on Spotify. Cannot say it enough. Keep us there. If you listen to a couple of episodes, which I know you'd love, then you can go back and see the ones that you missed. Go back, listen to a few episodes, then you can rate us 5. Keep us at that top rating. Are we the best or the highest rated on Spotify? Maybe
doesn't
not,
matter.
Because it doesn't matter. We're just a smooth
That's a rhetoric
5
question,
stars
yeah.
shared
Yeah.
with lots of other people, but we're definitely the top.
Very good.
You can find us. Look up No Idea 4ZZZ on whatever podcasting platform. Or
And
app
subscribe.
you use.
Job
and
done.
Subscribe.
And
It
tickets
is.
go on sale for Z50 in a few minutes' time. So get on it, and we'll speak to you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
I'm a goddamn marvel of modern science.